What's going on, everybody? Welcome back, Clan Brandolorian. I had been prepping this for a while, and I'm very happy that it's out now, ready for you guys to view and listen to. So, before we get into it, let's go ahead, hit y'all with the intro. So, here we are, guys. Welcome back to Clan Brandolorian, the podcast where we talk all things Star Wars, past, present, and everything that's still a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. If you're new here, welcome to the clan. My name is Brandon, and this is the place where we have real conversations about Star Wars. And yes, conversations with myself as well. These stories, these characters, these themes, and where this universe is ultimately heading. In this episode, we're diving deep into the Mandoverse. Shows like The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and Skeleton Crew are all connected in how they're building toward Dave Filoni's Endgame style Star Wars film. This isn't just about recaps or surface level reactions, it's about how all these stories fit together, why this era matters, and what this crossover event could mean for the future of Star Wars. So sit back, relax, grab your popcorn, grab your drink, some coffee, a nice beer, and join us today. Let's talk about Star Wars. So, of course, with that being said, I'm actually enjoying a nice Diet Coke. I'm not too much of a soda drinker. I do like a lot of water, Gatorades, obsessed with electrolytes at this point, and coffee mainly. So that's kind of what Brandon drinks here. But yeah, so what are you guys drinking? Let me know down in the comments. So let's open this show today with a bold frame. The Mandoverse isn't just a collection of Disney shows, it's Star Wars' first real shared universe. Now, we're looking at shows like The Mandalorian, amazing, Din Djarin, Din Grogu. This is what brought me back into Star Wars. Like I've said numerous times on the channel, when I first heard of The Mandalorian, I thought people were watching this and being like, wow, this is just like, the new age of Star Wars. I'm like, oh, so Boba Fett finally got his backstory. Now, not watching the Clone Wars animated series, I wasn't too in it at the time, so when I heard of Mandalorians, I instantly thought of Boba or Jango, and kind of being naive to the fact of thinking those are the only two that are in possession of Mandalorian armor, hence they are Mandalorians. That, of course, is not the point. We meet this Lone Ranger, Din Djarin, who, is a very captivating character, very cool, always living on the edge, and of course, he's voiced by star Pedro Pascal. Absolutely love that actor. I think a lot of the stuff he's in, I always follow. I still haven't seen Fantastic Four. I'm not too much of a Marvel and DC kind of guy, so I don't really dip into those other superhero style movies. But I did like The Last of Us. That was pretty good. Never really got into Game of Thrones. I know his character is pretty prominent in there for a little bit. But the Mandalorian is what really does it for me. And he's only the voice. So that's kind of a crazy thing. And actually, earlier today, we found out that Kathleen Kennedy is actually stepping down and entering retirement at Lucasfilm. So this is something that is very, very interesting, knowing that Dave Filoni is heading in. Lin-Wen Brennan is also joining Dave Filoni at the helm. And I think this is a good thing. I think we're going to get a lot more Star Wars going forward. There's been a plethora of bunch of ideas that Kathleen Kennedy kind of dropped a bomb on her way out the door. She was just like, look, we got a Lando movie coming. Donald Glover just turned in the script. Taika Waititi has a hilarious Star Wars movie pitched. The Hunt for Ben Solo script is still on the back burner, but I thought this was already made and was sent to Disney and got shut down. We do have another video on the channel, so make sure you guys check that out. If you're listening on YouTube, this will all be right here on the channel. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, make sure you go check us out on YouTube, Clan Brandolorian, of course. And so it's very interesting how all of these things are kind of coming together. And some series that we've been kind of thinking of, like the Lando film, where's that? So it is confirmed that the Lando series is now a film. So that's going to be really cool. But the Filoni Endgame, the Mandoverse finale, is on the back burner. And we found that out today of this recording, January 15th. So this is all breaking news. And I find it so interesting that the Filoni Endgame movie is going to be put on hold. So now that we think about that, and especially today's topic, talking about the Mandoverse, it is so cool to know that we could be getting more Ahsoka, more Mando, more Boba Fett, and more Skeleton Crew. Now, I think every show that is connected in the Mandoverse needs a season 2 at least. Now, I think with Ahsoka season 2, especially with Dave Filoni running that series, I think it is more important for him to kind of get Ahsoka's story rolling. So, In 2023, we got Ahsoka season 1, fantastic. And this year in 2026, we're going to get Ahsoka season 2. So these two stories coming from Dave Filoni are pretty much a big thing. I mean, this is the character he created. He's has an open dialogue, an open set for this character. There's so many different angles we can take with Ahsoka's character. You know, the Mortis gods, her being kind of like a fallen Jedi, one that, you know, left the order. Very, very interesting character, but also alongside with very interesting characters. So, I mean, we look at shows like Rebels, Clone Wars, those are all kind of binding together to kind of be, you know, you could look at the Ahsoka series as, you know, Rebels season 5. It's just kind of how you look at it. Episode 5, episode 6, 7, kind of going forward. It's pretty interesting what they're doing with Ahsoka. But with Mando having 3 seasons and a movie, Ahsoka is going to have 2 seasons, and I think the Book of Boba Fett needs to come back. Now, there are some things that really point at a Book of Boba Fett season 2. We did just get the Cobb Vanth speeder bike Lego set. With the Book of Boba Fett coming out in 2021, right at the end of 2021, finished out in 2022. What is the point of dropping a Lego set 4 years later? Literally, almost exactly 4 years later. That's just something that kind of doesn't sit with me too well, because I'm like, why wait on this? So I do think that there's going to be a lot of Book of Boba Fett news going forward. I think that with Cobb Vanth sitting in the back to tank at the end, that opens up a possibility of Cobb actually taking over Boba's palace. Used to be Jabba's palace. So I think with that ending that way, especially when Boba told, you know, Fennec and Kersantin that this line of work ain't meant for him. You know, someone else needs to do it. So I think that just really sets up for Cobb Vanth, and he can have the people of Mos Pelgo / Freetown kind of maybe move into Jabba's palace. I think that would be kind of cool. And maybe kind of build a little community around the tower. So that would be kind of cool to see a little community built around what would then be Cobb Vanth's palace, and he could be kind of the main guy who lives there, you know, a couple of his right hand men, but ultimately just really ruling that area. So Mos Pelgo itself is super small. We see it in a couple episodes of Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian. And also, I mean, Cobb Vanth, I love the character. Timothy Oliphant does a great job, and I think Cobb Vanth is just an interesting character that we can keep around for a long time. And plus, this gives us back Boba Fett. I mean, we get to see Boba Fett and Fennec Shand, especially Boba, return to that badass that we all wanted to see, which the Book of Boba Fett season 1, I have a huge soft spot for that season because it was so fun. And I remember I would wake up at 2 a.m. if I didn't wake up at 7 to watch it all. I would watch it, and then once my wife would get home from work, I would rewatch it with her, and it would be her first time viewing it. I mean, it was just a good time. The vibes were high. I mean, it was just amazing. So Book of Boba Fett, really cool. Plus Boba Fett's, you know, easily top 3 characters in my book. Always, you know, him and Obi-Wan teeter for the number 1 spot. Just kind of depends on the day, but I just think it would be so cool to see Boba and Fennec back. You know, the line of work Boba could kind of get himself into. Maybe he helps out Mando a little bit more than we expect. Shows like the Skeleton Crew. I mean, this was kind of a little show kind of off in left field. It was its own thing. The kids, they all did a great job. KB, Wim, Neil, and Fern. There we go. It took me a minute. It's been a while since I've seen it. I only watched it one time through. But I think those kids had a good bond. You know, the boys were friends and the girls were friends, and they kind of came together. And of course, they get kind of sucked in by pirates. You know, wrong place, wrong time. Jod Nawood, Jude Law's character, was pretty cool. We get to find out a little bit of his backstory. Nothing too much. We know that a Force sensitive, more likely a Jedi, watched over him when he was young, and he saw people with red blades take her out. So very interesting what that backstory could be, what it could lead into. But the Skeleton Crew kind of being its own thing, I think it's going to be pulled in by Atten, not more so Jod Nawood. I know he was arrested by the Republic. The kids have their own story. I don't see how we could take the 4 kids from the Skeleton Crew and they save the day in, you know, on Dathomir against Thrawn. Like, I don't think that is remotely going to be the case. But I do think Atten having those old Imperial credits, we did see how the pirates, when they saw them, were like, whoa, what are those? Like, those are old school. Let me get those. You know, they're probably worth tons more So if Thrawn can get his hands on AT-AT and get his hand on those credits, he could then turn it in and basically fund his army. So I think this is where Thrawn definitely becomes the heir to the Empire. Now, kind of, looking between the lines, we're just looking at all of the series so far, just kind of hitting a little recap on them and kind of how they can all be pulled together. But those four really pulling that mold together, we could have some really intense connections and themes going forward. So with this, being the end game, this is where it all ends. Early predictions, I do think, characters like Din Djarin, Thrawn, possibly Ahsoka, maybe even Boba Fett, will all meet their demise. Now, I know with Endgame, you kind of compare it to Marvel a little bit. And, from what I know and what I've seen is that Iron Man was the only one that passed away. I think in this one, especially in the Star Wars universe, going forward, I mean, you can write characters in all the time. Characters die all the time and they come back. But I think with this, it would be pretty heavy if Mando died. That would just, kind of set Grogu up for the rest of his future going forward. But if you don't know exactly what the Mandoverse is, it is set roughly 5 to 10 years after the Return of the Jedi timeline. So this is a really cool thing. The power vacuum after the Empire's fall. We have the rise of Imperial remnants, warlords, and competing ideologies. Now, I think this is where Thrawn really ties in. He doesn't seem to be more of the overall violent type. He's not one who will kind of beat you in combat. He's the one who is known as the master strategist. He's the one that will outsmart you, count his days and then move forward. We see a little bit of his tactics in Ahsoka season 1, how the ground game was not working for them, but he let Ahsoka waste all of her time down on the battlefield, and they looked at that as a time to get the hell out of Peridea. And it worked. And now Ahsoka, Sabine, Shin, Baylan, they are all stuck on Peridea for the time being. And the Jedi are still prominent. We do have Luke Skywalker, and of course he has his Jedi Academy that he just started. Grogu declined the offer of being his first student there. So by this time, maybe we could see a little bit of Luke Skywalker and some Padawans. And this would also be kind of the time where Ben Solo would be around 3 to 4 years old. So we know that he's not at Luke's Jedi Temple just yet. And there's also no Sith Lords that we know of. There's none that are looming threats in this galaxy. It's going to be more so good guys versus bad guys rather than Jedi versus Sith. The galaxy is also very unstable at this time. So this is where you can really meet up with that good storytelling. There's not too much going on. But when you have Filoni and Favreau with this approach for a Mandoverse movie, by this time, we may have 2 seasons of Boba Fett, 2 to 3 seasons of Ahsoka. We have 3 seasons of The Mandalorian, a movie of The Mandalorian, and maybe a season 4 or a season 5, maybe just a little spinoff even in itself, and maybe a second season of Skeleton Crew. But what's really cool about the Mandoverse is everything seems that it's at a complete island. Like everything is separate in itself, but once they all come together, it makes those stories much bigger. And some of the themes within the Mandoverse is it's really cool because we get Filoni's side. We get a little bit of the Clone Wars style, the long form arcs, and with Jon Favreau, we get some of the samurai, the Western kind of feel, and things are just very different. So those two together make a great show. But kind of like we've talked about, The Mandalorian is the spine of the Mandoverse. This is the main thing. This is what connects everything. And just a quick run through of the foundation with The Mandalorian. We have Din Djarin, Grogu, who's force sensitive. Din Djarin is a Mandalorian warrior, and the New Republic's weaknesses. We get to see a lot of what's going on with the New Republic and kind of trying to fill in their holes. Mandalore's restoration, we have the mythosaur symbolism, we have the unifying fractured clans, how all of the Mandos come together. We get to see the ending of that, which is cool. The Imperial remnants, we have Moff Gideon as a, kind of like a symptom. He's not really the head honcho, but he kind of wanted his own thing, and he wasn't more so the disease within the Empire. He of course worked with the Empire. He was, an Imperial, but he kind of had his own little thing that he was trying to accomplish, and that was to clone himself. Seemed like he was kind of a jealous guy that he didn't have the ability of wielding as much force as a lot of other characters. But the key thing here is Lone Wolf and Cub, seeing that bond, that dynamic. It's a beautiful duo. We get to see family and legacy, the individual choices shaping galactic events. That's something I really wrote down that I wanted to talk on, because how many times have we seen Din Djarin almost die if it wasn't for Grogu or, some of the people at his side, not having Cara Dune, Boba Fett, Fennec Shand. I mean, Grogu, how many times has Grogu saved the day for Din Djarin? I mean, it's just insane. And then a quick run through for the book of Boba Fett. We have the crime, the power, the outer rim. But what makes this show matter more than people admit? Now, it shows criminal underworld roles. Now we get to see all of the different aspects of the book of Boba Fett. We get to see Mos Eisley. We get to see Mos Pelgo. We get to see Mos Espa. We get to see different factions within the cities in itself. There's the Trandoshans are over here. We have, some, I can't even remember like the moisture farmer's name, which he was kind of funny because he was like overcharging the kids and the, citizens of water. I mean, a lot of different things like that. I mean, not everyone was on the same side. And, the way Jabba ran things for years, and I love the callbacks to Jabba, especially where that's where it all takes place, is at Jabba's palace for the most part. A lot of the citizens talk about how Jabba used to be, and they weren't really messing with that. But then they had Bib Fortuna after. Just ridiculous. But it also shows, how power is just completely different after the Empire. So I can see where some people checked out, but it's kind of lazy. I feel like right here for the book of Boba Fett, it's awesome. We get to see a new age Boba Fett. So we get to see him go from that feared bounty hunter to a leader. He rejects old systems of fear and he tries to rule through respect. And what happens here is when he had a near-death experience, and like an actual one, Boba's been through many things, through after losing his father, after running around with Bosk and Aura Singh trying to figure out the bounty hunter ways. I mean, he's definitely had close calls with Cad Bane and all throughout, the original trilogy. But we have to look at what happens. So when they're on Jabba's skiff, Return of the Jedi, he ends up falling into the Sarlacc pit. So you're being slowly digested. C-3PO explains it, and it's just not a good time at all. If you were at that point, you would probably, if you had a second chance at life, you would probably try to find a peaceful way. Now, originally, like in Legends, Dengar helped Boba out of there. I thought that was a cool approach. But in the book of Boba Fett, we see Boba get oxygen from a stormtrooper and then use his flamethrower and punched outside of the stomach of the Sarlacc. Now, I thought that was just absolutely amazing. I just remember that feeling of clarity, knowing what happened, how Boba got out of the Sarlacc pit. It was kind of like Count Dooku in Kamino when he cleared the Jedi archives. I mean, back in 2002, seeing Attack of the Clones, you're like, wow, like what happened? Why is Kamino not on the map? And then, 20 odd some years later, we see that in the Tales of the Jedi. I mean, it's just, I love when Star Wars does that. And that's a huge thing with Disney. I mean, that's a big Disney W. Like, would George Lucas have ever gone back and kind of filled those holes and shown us? I mean, it's just, it's amazing. I love that about Star Wars, how we can go back and kind of see how things unfold. But, Boba being taken in by the Tusken Raiders, I mean, it was very rough at first, but he was able to slowly mesh with them, and it was beautiful. I mean, it was Dances with Wolves on steroids in the Star Wars universe. It was so beautiful, such a cool thing, seeing them kind of slap him around a little bit, and he kind of earned his way into a Tusken, and it was really, really cool. That was something that I take kind of the most from the book of Boba Fett, seeing how he is. But I mean, he could still be badass, like when we see him in the Mandalorian for the first time, we're like, oh man, he's kicking ass. And it's like, he wanted his armor back. That was his main point. And then he ends up getting himself into the tussle with Mando. And he's like, you know what? You helped me get my armor. I will help you protect the child. So now Boba Fett is a rightful babysitter of, Din Grogu. So that's a really cool thing. And I mean, Boba is an iconic character. It stems back all the way to the late 70s. So, absolute beautiful character. The Book of Boba Fett also takes place on Tatooine, one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic planet in all of Star Wars. We get to see a little bit of Din Grogu and Din Djarin's story continue and get back together in the Book of Boba Fett, and it also establishes that local power that matters just as much as galactic. So we get to see the Empire control the galaxy. In this, we get to see what running a city on a planet looks like. I mean, scum and villainy. I mean, we hear that from, old Ben Kenobi talking about Tatooine. So it's not easy. So really love that. Plus it brings all the characters together. It was just beautiful. Quick rundown on Ahsoka. I mean, this is where we get to see Thrawn as the true antagonist, the idea of galactic scale strategy. Love it. Really good. I also love the kind of spookiness to it. I mean, the Nightsisters. I'm so ready for Ahsoka season 2. We get to see more of the Nightsisters. We get to expand their lore a little bit more. We get to see Dathomir in live action. This is insane. I cannot wait for the end of this year. It's going to be perfect. Thrawn changes everything in the Mandoverse. I mean, it's not just military power. Intelligence and patience is the big key words here. This is everything that we need. It also represents the Empire evolving, not dying. So we do know that the First Order will become prominent later down the line, and this is something that even Thrawn could lead into. Some of those ideologies from Thrawn being that post-Empire threat and ruling, this could slowly turn into the First Order. So that's something that could be really cool. The Rebels sequel energy, we feel that. We kind of mentioned that at the beginning. The New Republic's denial becomes dangerous. Now, spoiler warning. These are leaks and rumors. This is nothing official. This is not something that actually happened. But I do remember reading a Reddit thread talking about, take this with a huge grain of salt. I mean, it could be completely false. But there is a scene, spoiler warning once again, fast forward a little bit if you need to. But Leia Organa ends up, hearing about Thrawn's return. And of course, we know that Mon Mothma happened to be asking Hera, like, is this real? Is Thrawn actually coming back? Like, how real is this? And Hera was just like, yeah, this is a real thing. So this being, it's kind of gives you goosebumps because you're like, oh shit's about to pop off. But the Ahsoka series sets this up perfectly because, Leia gave Hera the permission to make her little side quest to go to Cetos. And here's where we get to see Leia Organa actually have fear. She is very worried about Thrawn returning, and she ends up going into a little hiding, which is actually insane. So it's like, very, very interesting. So Leia hearing about Thrawn and is actually scared, and it makes her go into hiding. So, and it's not like a long hiding, it's not like Yoda going to Dagobah or Obi-Wan Kenobi going to Tatooine. It's just more of like a little hiatus for a very short period of time. That's what I read. But even with that, I mean, it could be true or not. It would be very interesting. But yeah, so what's kind of cool about Ahsoka is we're not on just a planet or two or even 3 or 4. We're in a completely different galaxy. So we're working with the main galaxy and the galaxy that Peridia is in. Very cool. But what's so funny about the Skeleton Crew, it's kind of like the wild card, it's like I said earlier, it's in left field. The regular people, they're not warriors, they're not Jedi. It also shows the galactic conflict that affects civilians, and that's kind of a little thing that you get to feel from Tatooine, Mos Espa, but this is a little different. We have new allies, there's key locations, emotional stakes. It was kind of bad, feeling with the kids and what they're going through, especially once the pirates come to Adat. Things definitely clear up. So if we're to go forward and kind of look at the Filoni Endgame film, what can this entail? So the most likely things to happen is Din Djarin and the Mandalorians, Ahsoka and her Force users, the New Republic leadership, Thrawn and Imperial remnants. Those are kind of going to be the big groups and the little subgroups. Now, the probable themes that we could get in here is I have 2 main ones. The legacy versus the evolution. We have some of the older characters mixed with some of the new, and the unity and the fragmentation. We have to see everyone come together. If they're going to defeat Thrawn, and there's rumors of Abeloth returning in the Ahsoka season 2, we have a lot to kind of wrap around. Like, this isn't going to be easy. So lots of forces are going to have to come together to defeat the villain. But what's cool is it's not just a straight up Jedi versus Sith story. I mean, how many times have we seen that? That is Star Wars, but it's also just not even a Skywalker continuation. It's just more so of the unity and the fragmentation. That's really the main thing here. But more so, I'm trying to really wrap my head around what's going on exactly with the Filoni Endgame being put on the back burner? I mean, or what are they still going to try to map out this story more so? I mean, are we looking at second and third seasons, even up to fourth seasons of the shows that are in the Mandoverse? I mean, this is probably one of my favorite times in the Star Wars universe. I really love this little time frame. It's cool. It's after Return of the Jedi. I mean, amazing movie, and for what it is, I really love Return of the Jedi because of what the film brings. You know, we get great settings, one of the best lightsaber duels, the most emotional duels and moments that we've seen in all of Star Wars. And I think it would be really, really cool to kind of explore a little bit of Luke Skywalker. I love Luke Skywalker. I think, you know, he's a great Jedi for, you know, what he is, and seeing him kind of mix in with these newer characters. Like, I remember watching The Mandalorian. You understand that that's like a newer film. So in the Mandoverse, what is your favorite series? Do you think The Mandalorian and Grogu is going to shape out pretty well for it being in the first movie set in the Mandoverse? Let me know down in the comments below. If you're listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, I truly appreciate you guys chiming in on other platforms. And if you guys want to see a lot of the video content, please make your way over to YouTube, or if you're here already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're going to stay up to date with everything. We talk all things Star Wars, whether that's lore, theories, Funko, Lego, every single corner of the galaxy, we dive into it. So with all that being said, guys, thank you for listening. This has been episode 2 of Clan Brandolorian, the podcast. We will see y'all in the next one. This is the way.